Hello everyone, I'm Sanjung and I like to share my experience what's happening on the CI/CD world and work experience of working on the CI/CD components catalog project. So what is this project about? I think I have already shared some details on our coffee chat and also on our team meetings already several times. So our amazing PM dove right down in this epic in a great way. What is the problem? How can we provide better option in this case? So I can just provide you a really simple example. So this was the research that was done before I joined on the team. Thanks to Nadia, we have a lot of UX research data already. And according to this user research data, that like people are struggling a lot because building a CI YAML file to use this pipeline and then running a job isn't that simple as I expected. And if the organization is big enough, and then let's say, okay, we're using Ruby, and then they want to have Ruby test job wherever in their different project, and then they just have, okay, this is the template Ruby test file, and then they have this SSOT GitLab repository, and then the current experience just copy and paste it to their own GitLab CI YAML file. So, which is not that ideal, but I can walk you through like how does that look like. So this looks complicated, but I can just give you a really quick summary. So let's say this is one CI template that could run Ruby. I think this one is for the iOS job. So let's say this is used organization-wise. And that means the project A want to also have this, project B also want to have this, and also for the project C. And what they do at the moment is copy from line 1 and copy the end of the line, okay, and I paste it to their CI YAML file. And okay, but what happens like, oh, you know what, we want to add a new line here, or we want to update a couple of lines, and the current experience is Slack the team member, like, hey, like there's an update here. Could you also do the same to your projects, A and B and C? So it's kind of like not the ideal experience so far. But if we are having this CI/CD catalog, that means they can make this as one template. And then once they release it as a template in the CI/CD catalog, that means the developer of project A and B and C, they can just use the same template by typing include and component. And this means some different configurations. So maybe within like less than 10 lines. So which is very handy. And I think the most beneficial to having this option is, so when there's new changes in the template, it just fetched to here so that they don't need to like go back to their project A, CI YAML, update line 27 and do the same to the BC. That process will be gone if we introduce this change. So that's basically what CI/CD catalog does. So that was my understanding so far for the month 1. And then I started to get pinged by a lot of backend engineers, PMs, a lot of different stakeholders. So whenever I saw this, like I literally got so many emails, Sissy Sanjung, this is, I think, what you need. Okay, but this is about API endpoints, some discussion, and then, well, I'll try to understand the discussion. I'll try my best to provide UX proposal after reading your proposal. So yeah, it wasn't easy for the first month. And so this is like January 23rd, which is still, so it's a month too. And I was thinking like, are we on the same page? But why I was asking this question was, this project was kicked off about a month ago, not a month ago, sorry, a year ago. And then like, this is like, okay, like seems like so many people have different opinions, different ideas. But I was wondering like, are we using the same terminologies? Like, are we imagining the same product inside our mod? That was my question. So this is my favorite way to do this. Like, just let me know what you envision this product so that I can learn from them, and then so that I can grab their ideas to my design. So that was the goal. So these are the couple of examples that I got. And what I noticed was we were using different glossary for the same things. So that was my first, okay, we need to discuss the terminologies. And as you can see here, like everyone has slightly different ideas on how we present the template structure. I'll explain the details a little bit later. And this was the sketching session summary, which I really enjoyed a lot, like just summarizing this information and the metadata, they put it here. So I can see that there are two major parts of using the components. So let's just ignore the creating components part, but I'll just focusing on the using the component part, because this sketching session is scoped down into that smaller scope. And what I understood was like, okay, like using and find components is important. Probably we need this type of metadata, but to use that, like building trust, so that, okay, if I use that CI components template, then okay, I can rely on that in terms of security reason, because they could also run a job like relevant to security, then the trust is important. So they like to see like who released the CI components and then who are using these components to which project. And it's all about collaborations, of course, easy onboarding, maintaining components. So this is more like the creating components part, but I can just skip to focus our discussion to the using the components. So this was the first action item. Like, let's discuss the terminologies. And we had a lot of discussion. We had a blueprint around like, this is our alpha. Now it's renamed to experiment feature. And then like, what is component? Like, what is project? What is version? Like, what is catalog resource? How can we, let's say, pull like this item and also this? Like, there were so many discussions ongoing. In the end, like, okay, we sit down together, we had a lot of sync discussion, async discussion, and then this was kind of the outcome. And then this really made me like easy to communicate, because I was still new, like it was like month 3. So, okay, now I understand what they're about, what they like to communicate to me, that like I need this design for a project or for the components repository. So just kind of like sorted out in my month 3. And what I learned, like why I'm working on this MVC design for this project is, wow, there is so many relationship between the UX work and the backend engineering. So the database modeling part. Of course, like you have already experienced that, but especially for this project, like since we are building a new feature from scratch, our backend engineers were focusing on creating a new database table, and then they want to design this database as well, and in parallel with all the UX validation and then the UX work. So this example is what I like to share with you all today, is this. So what this means is, you see, so let's say user already released a couple of CI components repository to here. So each item that you see here is essentially the GitLab repository that they have marked as, okay, this is my CI template library project. And then I want to let our developers to use these templates. And there was so many discussion around data modeling. So it wasn't easy at the beginning, like, what is this discussion about? But I can give you some more examples. So let's say, so this is one of the real use case example that we can publish to our CI/CD catalog. And what this structure essentially means is, or we want to have a nested component. So nested component means, or we want to have nested like Ruby test and Ruby lints inside one project as a whole, like Ruby, and then let them navigate through by clicking this project. And then, okay, here's lint. And then there's a template they can use. And also for the test. So are we wanting this data structure, or this is another possible option that we could use? That means, so we didn't go this way, so we don't have an example for this, but I just like recreated, like imagine that it would look like this. So that means if user want to finding a Ruby test, that means they will see the catalog Ruby test, not like Ruby here. And then they can include the component by doing this. And they will see another Ruby lint below the Ruby test, and they can also use it. So we had a lot of discussion, like what is more scalable option, and also a lot of technical discussions involved. But to the user's point, like which is more scalable, like which aligns better with the user's like actual use case. And with a lot of discussion, in the end, we decided to go to this way because of many different reasons. But one of the main reasons why we chose this path is, if we go to the Ruby and having Ruby test and Ruby lint under this project, so if they like to use the Ruby test and Ruby lint in a whole, then they can also use this Ruby at the version number, and then they can paste it, and that's it. But if we go this way, and then if they like to, oh, I want to use this Ruby test and Ruby lint all together, that means they have to include these two separate components. So that was the reason why, main reason why we decided to go for this direction. And the other thing is, so I think, so I'm just like borrowing the developers' terminologies, that like what they discuss is more like monorepo philosophy versus monolith philosophy, which I didn't get all at that time. But based on what they're saying, is like having this data structure, and maybe at some point we did a lot of user research, and then we get a lot of data point after all, and then probably this is more right approach. If we go that way, starting from this and pivoting to this way is doable, but not the vice versa. So that was the main reason why we go for this option. And then I realized that, wow, like this really impacts to the user flow, as well as the information architecture that I designed for our users. So this was one finding. And like there's a lot of like small aspect, like for example, like we're using this search component repository. That means the backend developers, they would need to consider, so if we like to use Elasticsearch, they like to also planning for their data structure, like what kind of data should we hold for the search function. And for example, like this small UI text, like how can we design this table better so that we can be more scalable at the same time? And also we're showing the right message. So before I dive into this design process, like I had a lot of coffee chat with them, like by one-on-one, and also having a lot of team call, so that I just tried to understand their rationale behind the data modeling. And then in the end, like I got their intention, and then I just tried to incorporate their needs as well as users' needs, because we had already a lot of user research data, so that I could start working on the design. So like normally I would just start prototyping and then probably asking backend engineers to provide feedback. But for this project, I did a slightly different approach, and then which I think it worked very well on this team. So this is what I've learned so far. Using a consistent language is important, of course, you know, but like it's especially for this type of new feature or new project, like we were using all different terminology. So it really helped that once we come up with the decision that, okay, let's use this language for each concept. And the second point was like, okay, data modeling is really linked to my work, especially the information architecture work. And it could potentially impact the not just the user flow, it could also impact the performance in the later iteration. So I just really try to participating in all the technical discussion as far as I can do, because it seems like this data modeling at the very beginning of the phase, and then like how we show the metadata and all the information on the UI is really closely linked. So I also want to be on the same page with our backend engineers. So what I learned is like, okay, like I need to bring more backend engineers input in my design process. So my current focus is I'm having this design sync session. I originally had the sync session with only the front-end engineers and the PM, but I expanded the audience to everyone on the team so that the back-end engineers could join and also try to share their thoughts before I dive into the design. And I also plan for more work like user research, any design work, focusing on how user choose the syntax and keywords so that like they have more opportunities to participate on my design process. So this is my story. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. And do you have any question? And I also love to hear your experience because I'm pretty sure you also had similar one before. And yeah, I'd be happy to hearing more of the tips from you.
I have a question. Is the team looking at incorporating how to like add a template when you're working in a file? Does that question make sense? So like instead of going out into the catalog, I'm creating a file and I want to add like part of a template into that file.
Yeah, I think probably that more aligns with the user's context, but like what currently they're doing is they open a local IDE and then they open up the GitLab CI YAML file and then find something on the GitLab repository and then paste that into your local IDE. So our goal for the next iteration, like iteration 2 or 3, is to have it next to pipeline editor, and then that requires like really like drag and drop style interaction. So if they find Docker deploy components, and then they can use it part of the drawer and Docker deploy, and then they will see the parameters. And then if they click, okay, I'm going to apply to my file, and then they can use it. But this is our MVC, but that's planned for the iteration 2 or 3. Not for now. Yeah.
Gotcha. The other thought that I had was whether this can be tied to code suggestions at all, or if you've talked to that team and like if someone is typing whatever out in their file and then we recognize that that's part of a template that we have, we can auto generate it in some way.
Yes, actually, that was one of the insights from the recent benchmarking study, that if they're using our pipeline editor, then we can, it's like automatically generate suggestion. Like if they start to typing like include components, and then we can show in the drop down that like, are you using this? I think we can brainstorm more about this because we just got this research insight, but I am happy to brainstorm this and moving forward, because if we have more tag, let's say, okay, you're using the Ruby in your project, and then we can kind of already pre-selected the components only for the Ruby and then provide those lists, which makes more relevant drop down, not just showing all the random things. I think that's totally doable, but also for the next iteration.
Awesome. Thanks, Sanjun.
Yeah, thank you.
I have the next one. I was curious, did you find it easy to get involved with the, data architecture, like design process? I find that sometimes like development or product don't necessarily think of UX when they think of sort of that step.
Yeah, thanks for asking that question because that wasn't easy at all. That wasn't easy, but like what I tried to do is building really like one-on-one relationship at the beginning. I think it was easier for me because I was new to the team. So everyone's like, yeah, let's have a coffee chat. And then like that opportunity like gave me a lot of time, like, hey, like actually I saw your comment here. Like let's just talk about the work things a little bit, and then it moves to the work topic. And after like one coffee chat, like of course I couldn't get like what they have in mind. Of course, I cannot do it in 30 minutes chat. And then I reschedule it a lot to all of the backend engineers so that like, am I on the same page with your proposal? And then I ask also a lot of questions, DMing them. So yeah, I kind of ping them a lot so that I could understand like what they're talking about, especially when they're designing the APIs. And actually, this exercise also was very helpful because everyone has had opportunity to participate in the design process. So I think like they feel like, okay, like we are really part of this design process. Now we are one team. Okay, she's new, but we are one team. I think this is the point that I started to feel like we are one team, even though it was just month two or so. So I think it was, so long story short, it wasn't easy, but it was worth to try.
Yeah, definitely. I've gotten more involved with like data architecture discussions in fulfillment, and it's so valuable to, I think, be in those discussions of like how they're structuring data, because ultimately like those are the things that like downstream
Yes.
our user experience.
Mhm.
And so I was really excited to see you present on this.
Thank you.
Okay, I think the next one is me.
Okay.
I wanted to check, like you talked about how the repository share and like template sharing is going to happen within an organization, but is there a plan for a more global marketplace where just anyone can contribute and use the templates?
Yes, that's a great question. I don't remember exactly which milestone, but it's like 16.7 or so. It's so we have a plan to have a like open marketplace, but we call it at the moment as public catalog, so that every community contributor can create their own CI template, and then like, yeah, this can be used for the Docker component, Docker build, Docker deploy, and then if they can publish their components catalog, then everyone can use it. But for now, as a smaller start, we only open for this for the organization level, which should be private, and it's only for the ultimate customer for now.
Thanks.
Yep.
Very excited for this.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I don't know if we have time for more questions.
Yeah, we
I think we
got
have time.
four more minutes. So go ahead, Pedro.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Sanjung, for sharing this. Do you think it will be valuable for you to, for you and the team to create a conceptual model with the object relationships, attributes, and possible actions? In this case, it will be multiple objects, which I think you already described in the that dictionary or glossary that you showed, yeah. And yeah, I was wondering if it would be interesting to visualize those relationships and also to start describing what would be the attributes of these objects.
I think that's a great point because I was thinking to draw a model just for me to understand, and then if I understand it correctly, so that I can share it to all the team that, hey, like, is my understanding correct? Is it aligning with your mental model? I was thinking about that approach at first, but I'll be honest, we have a very strict timeline to see this MVC design. I think I had like 2 weeks. So that was the main reason why I could not just start to dive into that object model and then like just drawing like really nicely.
Yeah.
But I think for this project is what we needed, probably because we will also expand it to the public catalog, which will be open the door to the open source community as well. So probably it's the right timing to do so, so that I double check with the backend engineering team and also the front end engineer, so that like we're using the same terminologies, we're seeing the same thing. So that's a great suggestion.
Yeah, and it makes perfect sense. You were in the middle of that work, and and to be honest, the objects that we already have in pajamas, they have been designed and built for years. So the first one was merge request, so it's not something that we need necessarily to do before or at the beginning of a project. So I think even if it's after the fact and it helps everyone think better, it might be valuable. And also as a way for other teams at GitLab to consume and use the catalog. So if, I don't know, in the future we have, value stream management looking at usage of the CI/CD catalog, or I don't know, something in merge request related to this, then the different teams can look at those conceptual models to help design their experiences. Yeah,
that's a really good part that I didn't think of. So thanks for raising this. I think this is definitely what we needed, because I already chatted with one of the PM on the Create team that there are a lot of templates type of things that we can provide to our users. So this is just a CI components catalog for now, but probably we might need to have more template library concept, like more into our product. And then like to do so, I think I can start working on that conceptual model, so that, okay, this is like how we build, and so that I can start the discussion and communication a little bit easily and clearly. All right.
Awesome. Thanks, Sung Jun. Appreciate it. I'm going to stop recording now.